EmilAmok to you. Welcome to my takeout, my takes on all things considerable. I said all things considered, but it really is all things considerable because we consider big things here, big and small, really. But what a week, what a day! I was going to talk about just the uh, the first year and bring on Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez. He'll be joining me in a second. But this morning, another shooting in Minneapolis. So we'll talk about that breaking news. We'll talk about what's going on with ICE and what the state of the nation really is as we consider 1 year after the first, the end of the first year of Trump's second term. But first, I got to tell you that the other big story of the day is this big storm. I'm trying to get on the leading edge of the storm, going from east to west. I'm in New York City. Tonight, I'm in this play called The Amanuensis. It's a staged reading. It's at the Eric Firestone Gallery at 40 Great Jones Street. And if you happen to be around, stop on by. It's a staged reading, so we're reading from scripts, but you'll hear the words of the playwright Ishmael Reed, the amanuensis. It's a story about the Song of the South and the Brer Rabbit story exposed, right? Because you know that Joel Chandler Harris, who wrote the Song of the South, was said by H.L. Mencken to be dictating or taking dictation from black slaves and then passing off the stories as his own. Joel Chandler Harris, white American, creator of Brer Rabbit. Well, those are slave stories. Ishmael's play, The Amanuensis, gets into that. Tonight, 7 o'clock, Eric Firestone Gallery, 40 Great Jones Street in New York. It's really East 3rd, but check it out. And I have a small part in that. And then I head back almost immediately, or the next morning, to back to the West Coast because I'm trying to beat the storm. The storm's coming in from west to east on the East Coast, and I do my show, EmilAmok, 69 EmilAmok, January 26th. That's on Monday at 8:30 p.m. And I should make it in time, but if you're anywhere in the country, you can watch it streamed live on playground-sf.org. Go there to get tickets. Tickets are free. The show is free with donation, and you can stream it live, or you can show up in person. And I hope you show up in person. But if you happen to be, I don't know, Hawaii, Europe, wherever, you can catch it here. And if you miss it on January 26th on the Monday at 8:30, you can see it on the 2nd. You see it on the 7th. And you have a couple days, actually, if you buy a ticket on the 26th, you have a couple days to access the video. I do it live, and it's about the stuff we're talking about. It's about year one into year two. We're now into year two. And how you feeling about it? I mean, I have to admit that when I got the news this morning, that another federal agent, an ICE officer, killed a person in Minneapolis. That's according to local and federal officials with knowledge of the episode, prompting new clashes in Minneapolis. This is reports from the New York Times, although I understand that there is some video that is being played and it's not good. How are you feeling about this? I think this is where we call on Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez, my friend, Professor Emeritus, College of Ethnic Studies, Asian American Studies, San Francisco State University. Dan, we were just going to talk about the 1 year after, but I guess a new killing from federal agents. This how are you feeling now?
Pretty bad.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the kind of thing that we were talking about months ago, and my discussion about the possibilities, if there were a second Trump administration, my worst thoughts are coming true. And unfortunately, this is only the beginning of my worst thoughts, if we
Yeah.
can think about it that way.
Yeah.
Uh, there could easily be defensive violence against the intrusions being committed by ICE, the Border Patrol, and anybody else up there. The possible addition of military into this situation in Minnesota will worsen
Oh yeah.
the exercise of power. And I wish people would stop talking about just training, because this isn't only about training. This is
Yeah.
about culture. This is about troop mentality. Okay, and your statements off air were that this is becoming war. It is becoming war. It is not yet war. I think off air you said this is now war. You got to have true violent martial confrontation from the other side. That hasn't happened yet, and I
Yeah.
really pray that it does not. But there will be provocation. I
Yeah.
am, if we make comparisons with the '60s, you have to be safe. The reality
Mhm.
is that the oppression and suppression of what was being labeled radicalism at the time was described, the black community, essentially everybody were members of the Nation of Islam and therefore a threat, that everybody were members of organizations like the Black Panther Party. And so the whole of the Black American society was a threat, and that was used to mobilize the FBI,
Mhm.
local police working in concert, state police working in concert, and that provoked reactions on college and university campuses. I am a veteran of those actions on college and university campuses. And we were then called communists. We were called, always claimed that there were outside agitators. Yeah, there were people from San Jose State that came up to San
Yeah.
Jose State to
Yeah.
join in the strike, right?
At San
Those were
Francisco
the
State. Yeah.
outside agitators. Yeah. So we're hearing that same language. And so there is a tendency to make comparisons between what happened in the '60s. This is worse, okay?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the scale of the mobilization of federal forces and the concentration of those forces in particular places is much stronger than anything that we ever faced, okay,
Yeah.
on
Well,
college campuses at the time.
it's at San Francisco State where you were. It was just local police. It wasn't the National
No, it
Guard. It
wasn't.
wasn't.
No, that's wrong, dude. They had
Oh, was it
FBI
more?
there. They had
Was
FBI
it?
there. They were taking our pictures. The local
Was it? It
police.
was more. It was more. The feds
Oh
were
yeah,
there.
there was state police too. There were out-of-state cops. I was
Mhm.
watching people doing crowd control exercises, and they were from Denver. Okay,
Yeah. All right.
they
All
were,
right. My bad. My bad. I'm just trying to get into the comparison between the '60s and what's happening now.
yeah.
I
It
think
wasn't.
when
It
I
wasn't federal at this level and in these numbers.
yeah,
The
but
estimations are, even by their own statements and also confirmed by journalism, good objective journalism, is that
mm,
there are at least 2,000, if not 3,000, combination of federalized officers, right,
yeah.
concentrated in Minnesota, the state of Minnesota. I'm not clear on how many are actually present in the city of Minneapolis itself, but they outnumber the local police by at least 3 times.
Yeah, you know what I see when I try to compare the '60s with now is that the '60s, if you think about when urban areas were being burned down, it was a black-white situation. It was a black community uh, that
Yes,
was that was really stepping up against racial injustice, and and then that merged with the anti-Vietnam protests, and
yes,
that made it
that's
bigger, and
accurate.
that got into the campuses, Kent State, and then San Francisco State. It was a kind of combined thing about a demand for ethnic studies. You see all of those kind of antecedents come back in some form. In some ways the anti DEI stuff that tries to take
Yes, this is
ethnic
this is
studies out.
Yeah,
but
this is
but
all
it's a
broader. It's all
yeah,
broader, but it involves everything that happened in the '60s. That's why the
right.
comparisons are apt. Okay.
Yeah, and but also we're talking now not just about well, racial injustice, and we're talking about it's really this is a pro democracy movement in America,
Yes, it is.
standing up to fascism,
That's a good thing.
and yeah, and that is a good thing. But what I wonder is why we aren't seeing more talk on at least the side that is perpetrating these actions on the administration side to try to tamp them down and try to
Uh,
to allow cooler heads to prevail. And every
no,
time they
I agree.
try,
I agree that that's an open question, and but I have an open answer.
okay, wait, but let me just one second. I just say every time they try to do that, it inflames the situation more. When JD Vance went in to Minneapolis the other day, Donald Trump, when he did his press conference trying to show some sympathy for Renee Good, he only inflame things more because people saw right through it. And so it's almost like the administration has no ability to to uh, to do anything to reverse the forces and the power of the forces that they've really enabled.
They don't want to.
Yeah,
This is a movement coming from the right that is desperate and arrogant. It's based on the racial concept of white supremacy. Okay, it's based on the firm belief, a commitment to the notion that America was established by white people and that the society was intended to be enjoyed by white people, to be entirely governed by white people, and to be protected from intrusion by non-whites, okay, by white people. That's what fuels this movement. Okay.
well, and this is the thing, no one is saying it as bluntly and as clearly as you just did there, although the the hints are all there
Um,
in plain
Stephen
sight.
Miller is saying it as bluntly and clearly as I did.
Well, that's true, but I guess what I'm saying is the mainstream media isn't like putting it back out there saying that they're putting out his statements, and unless you interpret his statements to be
Yeah,
blunt
that's right.
and
Well, okay.
as
So
white
then, how
supremacists,
about Elon Musk? How
yeah,
about Elon
well,
Musk?
yeah, Elon
He
Musk
comes right out
statements,
and he said, "What if
yeah,
we become the minority, we will be slaughtered." He just said that.
right. Well, that was now that was a retweet, but it was never taken down, and something like 42 million people saw it, so and more. But a lot of people are seeing these videos of ICE's violent actions. Billions of people around the world are seeing that, and I think
Yeah,
you know I
Well, you're seeing peaceful people recording these events, okay, and
mm,
then tweeting them out or putting them up on the web, okay, and you're
mm,
seeing the comments by the agents themselves. I
yeah,
saw one where one woman said, "Why don't you just stop this?" Right? What? If you care, why don't you stop? We're not going to turn anybody else over. I'm not going to give you that information. And he said, "Okay, just for that, I'm going to raid 3 more families."
yeah,
That's the attitude that we're dealing with. This is
yeah,
in a level of aggression that these kinds of personalities, right, enjoy, and
yeah.
that's
Well,
the scary
that's
part.
right. And if they are seen as more under siege, that only gets them riled up more.
Well, yeah,
It, I
both
mean,
sides.
yeah.
It's really bad. I mean, this is
Well,
this is not a really good situation. This is extremely dangerous.
we need someone, or is there someone who can come in and calm things down? Because I don't
No,
see it coming from Trump. I don't see it coming from Vance. I don't see it come from anyone on the right and the left. Well, Booker, Cory Booker was saying, we need sensitivity training, and
man, I
I mean
just
that
told
was
you it's
kind of
not about
disappointment.
training. You got people on the front line that like this stuff. They
Yeah,
enjoy this stuff. They want to be mean. You got people who already have reached. Look at the guy that killed, okay, Ms. Good.
Hmm.
Jonathan Ross got dragged at the beginning of the year. Okay.
Yeah.
How does that happen? That happens because you reached into the vehicle, you idiot. That is bad practice. Okay. What did he do this time? They did the same damn thing. And it wasn't just him who did it. It was another guy that was trying to open the door and he reached into the
Yeah.
vehicle several times. It's on tape. It's right
Well,
there in your
yeah.
face.
The thing is that they are doing all these things that are outside really mainstream practices. It's guerrilla warfare is how they see it. They don't see it as a legitimate law enforcement
Well,
action. They see it as
and then the general media and the people on the left that want to criticize this keep saying training, training, training. This isn't just about training. They
yeah.
have never had. I guess, have you ever been confronted by a cop that you knew would go for his gun if you gave him a
Oh,
reason?
hey, listen. There are people, regular people who are people of color. The whole idea, like, I have to admit that I wasn't aware of this until my black friends were telling me why you would never go into, if you were stopped by a policeman, you never reach into your pocket to take your wallet
Nope.
because that would be grounds to get shot,
Yep.
and then that's why my friends who were black, when I was driving cars with them, they would always take their wallet out first and
Yeah,
put it
that's right.
on the dashboard.
Or right there next to the gear shift. Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
And it would always be there. And I said, well, why do you always take your wallet out? Is it hard to sit on or something? And then they would say, no, man, you don't want to get shot. Do you want to get shot? And then reach for your wallet and see if, that's an excuse. So anyway,
Can we put that experience of yours in context? What years approximately did you have that experience with African American friends?
well, my African American friends were telling me that this is like 2000. This is like 25
Yeah, this is
years
not
ago.
that far ago. Yeah,
This is not that far,
2000.
and this is a recent thing, and so I'm saying that what we have now is we have a situation now that people of color have seen throughout the years, many from before the 60s, but flash.
You asked me several discussions ago. Is this fascism? And I said there are several elements in American society that have been facing fascism, right, in their own particular social, political, and economic environment, okay, for their entire lives and for generations. That's
Yeah,
true. It's always existed within this society. The question is scale, right? How many people are feeling that pressure? That's what's dangerous about this moment, because now it's white folks that are feeling that pressure, and they're seeing that all of us have become anonymous. We're just the enemy at this point, and that's what's moving us into a state of war. All we need is violence coming from the oppressed people, the suppressed people.
yeah,
That's all we need, and we'll be entering a war-like circumstance. I really fear that possibility. I've mentioned that to you before off air.
yeah. Well, it doesn't help that ICE is enabled and feels more emboldened by you mentioned the term anonymity. When they're masked, they feel
That's
like they
right.
can do anything. Now,
Yeah, but they're
protesters.
treating us as though we're anonymous. And
Oh yeah,
that anonymity now, anonymity, that anonymity has now crossed the racial border. It's not
yeah,
just anonymous brown and black people anymore. It's just
yeah,
anonymous people, man.
yeah,
You know how broad that is?
yeah.
Try
Oh
to
yeah, yeah.
understand the scale. That's crazy.
It used to be, well, are they citizens or are they not citizens? Because that's, ostensibly who they were going after. They're going after
Yeah.
the criminals, right?
Wait.
Criminals.
It used to be criminal non-citizens.
Oh yeah,
Illegal.
criminal. Right.
Yeah.
Now it's
Illegal. Okay.
now it's everyone. Now it's everyone. Now it's legal, and in terms of criminality, overstaying a visa is not necessarily criminal. It's against
And if
civil
they're
law.
here seeking asylum, they have legal status.
Yeah,
They are legally present in American society. If they filed and they're going to court to keep their sessions up, these people have been jacked when they're coming out of court, when they're going into court, and that's been happening since the beginning of the year.
Yeah, well, let's see, but this is the thing that sometimes gets labeled as catch and release. They're not. If you came
Oh
in
man,
and you're if
you know,
you're
the
here
only
under,
people that said that was Kavanaugh. That's a
well,
that no,
but
that's a grand. You know, that is a white boy.
yeah,
I'm ashamed to say that he's a Jesuit educated white boy,
yeah,
right? You
hey,
know,
hey,
that has
look,
never
my
had to
only,
face cops doing that stuff. That
yeah,
that is a person who comes out of an exclusively racialized position.
yes, but my only point is that people who are here on TPS or here on some kind of asylum, if they're asylum seekers, they register, they're legal to go
Yes, they have
somewhere,
legal status.
and they have legal status, and then for them to be now suddenly victimized by ICE. It's really ICE mentality, right? We have an ICE mentality in America, and whoever has enabled the law enforcement arm here, and it would seem that you can point to several leaders or so-called leaders, Department of Homeland Security, the president, they could do something to stop this. They can call off the dogs.
Okay,
Why
I
don't they?
agree. Yes, they can, and they won't. Okay, I thought we already established that this
Yeah,
is based on racialized premise. Okay, it's all about white supremacy. Okay, and it's arrogant. The
yeah, yeah,
arrogance
but
comes from their ability to control the power.
but Dan, the thing is, all these images are going out. At some point, they will be hurt. They will be hurt by people who look upon these images. Now, the people who see these things still want immigration laws to be
Sure, they
enforced
still want the
vigorously.
border control and all the rest of
Yeah,
that.
but they don't want to see innocent people or people who are not criminals get beaten up or get detained for months
Exactly.
and die in detention. All these things have happened. And
Well,
it's,
and
it's
see, well, here's the other disgusting thing. You said, okay, why won't these people do something to tamp it down? And I just told you they're not going to want to do that. They
yeah,
still believe they have the power, and they're looking forward to the possibility or even probability that they will deploy the military to Minnesota.
yeah.
Okay, so if that occurs, that's going to escalate the situation, exacerbate the situation even more. Okay,
Okay,
let's set that
if
aside. That becomes even more probable.
all right,
Okay,
so if it's not the leaders of the on the right, the administration who can tamp it down because they won't, they have no compunction to. Who would? I mean,
it's the
how
same
do?
answer. It's the same answer that I was looking for when I posted on Blue Sky the question after the first Mark Elias, when Mark Elias, the great civil rights lawyer, filed lawsuits and successfully got judges' decisions right in his
Hmm.
favor. I posted to him. I posted on Blue Sky and I sent him a memo directly. And I said, okay, I don't want to be nasty, but so what? Who's going to enforce this? Because the complete control of the DOJ is what they were trying to establish. Who's going to
Yeah.
enforce this? Okay, because it ain't going to be Congress. Okay,
Hmm.
obviously it's not going to be the DOJ. And the answer, I didn't get an answer, by the way. I didn't get an answer.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, are in.
wait.
Yep.
The answer always was the states. That was
Mm,
always the answer. It's state
yeah.
power versus federal power. Now, this is interesting, right? Because state power was always asserted, right, as quote states' rights by the
Hmm.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Right.
and before that, it was always asserted by the Dixiecrats, the racist Democrats, right? Those were the people who were arguing states' rights. You got to keep the feds out of the state.
So,
This is about
so
the state.
what we have here
Abortion is
now,
about the states.
what we have here in the in keeping with my 69 idea, we have the 69 theory of EmilAmok. We have the total
Why
flipping
is it
of
always about
states'
sex?
rights. We have the flipping of 69 in terms of
Oh
states'
man.
rights. The Dixiecrats is not that now, it's going to be the liberals and the radicals, the progressives saying, hey, we're going to call states' rights here.
Well,
And
I think you're
are they
right to
going to be
be radical.
successful?
I readily admit we were all considered radicals. Okay,
Yeah.
Among all of those people that were the more radical of the radicals, including people who were former members of the party, the Black Panther Party, right? Right. Many
Yeah.
of them not only became lawyers, right, and defense counsel. Some of them became prosecutors, and some of them became judges. Okay, so that's
All
how
right.
radical we were. Okay,
All right, but
really
here's the
radical.
thing.
Some of us
Here's the
became
thing.
freaking professors.
Well, let's go back. Let's go back to that '60s things because when you mentioned the Panthers were a militant movement,
Yes.
and are we
That
going to see
originated
now?
as a defensive movement. It originated
Right,
as a defensive movement on the streets of Oakland. They armed themselves as observers, right,
right.
of police oppression. That's how
But
it started.
my question is this are the seeds for militancy now in the community?
Yes. Yes. That's my that's why I'm worried, man. I'm already seeing it from the protesters, right? It's not
Mhm.
just about the nasty language they use. I'm trying to clean up my own language now because I don't want to be associated with some of those guys. When you
Yeah,
see white
thank you
people,
for that.
oh man, I mean the F-bombs coming out of the mouths of white people. But a lot of these people are actually veterans. They're former, military
Yeah.
veterans. And so the use of that language is really quite familiar, to me and anybody. I've never been a veteran, right? But a
Well,
lot of the people I hang out with are veterans, and so there it is. Right?
here's the reports from the New York Times just from the last within the hour. Fights breaking out between protesters and agents. One protester appears to have been pushed to the ground. It's not going to get better, one bystander said. We're just going to get more angry. Another said, let's see, 3 to 4 tear gas bombs just deployed. Within the hour, protesters are moving back and still chanting, I smell Nazis. So it's not, this is that powder keg that we've tried to avoid. And I don't know, we've established that
Yeah.
it's not gonna come
Well,
from the
how do you
right.
feel about that? I mean, Nazis. How do you feel
Well,
about people
I
using
think
that
the
term?
Nazi images and the parallels are there. I mean, you can point to them.
Yeah,
You can see them. To
the ICE as SS.
yeah, ISIS, Gestapo. I mean, it's there, but I don't see anyone on the right trying to say, oh no, 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 it's not that. But what we have nationalists. Nationalists are Nazis. This
That's
is
right.
America.
That's
This
what
is what.
Nazi meant, man.
Yeah, I mean, so
Nationalist.
it
Wait,
is a white. It is a
nationalist,
white Nazi.
nationalist socialist, nationalist
Right.
socialist. Okay, that's what
So
Nazi meant, right? So
right.
you got people that are saying, "Wait a minute, what?" Those people were fascists. Yes, they were. Okay,
Yeah.
but they did it. They did their fascism under the cloak of both nationalism and socialism. So come
r-
on now.
Yeah.
If you call
Well,
these people Nazis, then that's what you're saying, right?
yeah. What I am afraid of is how Congress is so absolutely neutered, and how someone has to be a good patriot who is among the leadership who'll say,
There are a few.
who,
There are a few,
they're-
but see, once again, we're back to the basics, right? There are a
mm.
few, but all of them are scared of being trumped. It's as simple
Oh
as that.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Well, we have to remind people of that. So if
yeah.
you don't want to understand, there are people who are saying this stuff privately, but they won't say
Mhm,
it publicly because they're fearful of a Trump reaction. And it's really clear what he does, right? Now,
mhm,
NGT said, she got kicked out. She's leaving, okay, and she gets stomped on. Bolbert, right, said a couple of things that got bad attention from Trump. Okay. And she's kind of, moderated her position, but then something happens again. Okay. It's particularly
mhm.
the killing of Ms. Good. And she couldn't resist. She had to come out and be critical.
Yeah.
So she got stomped on again. So these people are really examples to everybody else in the Republican Party about what could happen to them. Okay. So the only thing that would satisfy Trump is the most extreme people. There's a dual effect, right? That the most extreme people that are pro-Trump are going to run for office. That's going to be good for Democrats. Okay. The
Yeah.
most extreme people, because they're not going to do well in that situation. The people who will probably do well would be people who moderate their positions and, if possible, right, trying to distance themselves, right,
Hmm.
from Trump specifically, from Vance specifically. How do you do that? How do you do that in a district, right, in an area that has been gerrymandered, right, in favor to be of exclusivity to Republicans? How do you do that? Okay, very difficult to try and manage. We lost you. I don't know if I'm being recorded. I can't see you anymore. Please come back. Where are you, dude? Hello. I'm up and woo, I'm not looking good. Okay.
Yeah, there he is. Okay, you're back.
Okay,
So
yeah,
we miss
I
you.
thought I lost you, but I think you
Yeah,
lost me. But okay,
we
anyway.
yeah. So
What,
go back and like first after your first two sentences you got left off. You
well,
said,
okay. So what we have is people who are fearful of being trumped. Okay, and
mm,
and that's just the baseline. Okay, when
yeah,
you move above that, then there's the question of what are you for, ideologically, and and the Republican Party has completely lost its way. There are only a few people who actually have conservative ideology. Everybody
mm,
else has lost their way. I mean, they
yeah,
say things like small government, right? Yeah. They say things like constitutionality. Well, go all the way back to the Tea Party and look at what they said about Obama. That's socialism, that's communism, right? We
yeah.
want to go back to the Constitution. So I asked them, this is right out front, my neighbors. I said, well, what part of the Constitution do you think has been disrupted? And what part of the Constitution do you think needs to be restored? Give me an amendment.
So we're dealing with
Well,
a
the
lot
First
of
Amendment, the Second
yeah,
Amendment. I said, okay, so free speech and guns, that's the limit of where you're going, right?
yeah. Well,
That's why you're going to fight for
well,
against
well,
Obama. Free speech and
for,
guns.
forget about the Fourth Amendment too. Remember
Well,
that.
I don't even know what the hell probable cause is, right?
And forget about the 14th
Fifth
Amendment
Amendment
and
due
birthright.
process. How about Fifth Amendment due process? How about Sixth
Yeah,
Amendment right to trial, right?
yeah.
Right? What
Well,
about
all of that
Seventh and Eighth
is
Amendment? 14th Amendment, right? Due process.
yeah, right. Well,
Equal
look.
protection.
So Dan, what we're dealing with is an ignorant American citizenry.
Well,
You
but
know,
see, it's ignorance. Ignorance. If you're being mild, right? But I'll go with that. Okay, ignorance and arrogance together. Those are two very bad things. Okay,
mhm.
I've seen
Yeah, yeah,
people. I've seen people in bar fights, man, get out there and say, "Come on, give it to me," and they got it. They
yeah.
got it. It's
Well,
ignorant. First of all, do you know that guy? Do you know the person you're going up against? Because he may look like a lightweight to but I happen to know that this guy has had like 14 years of practice as a kung fu man, right? It's
yeah.
like little tiny friend of mine named Lincoln Fong. A lot of people are gonna know this guy. And I've been on the street where people threatened us when we're on our way to our favorite Vietnamese restaurant, and he did a spin around a parking sign, right, toward the pole for a parking sign, and took out a parking meter. And I looked at the three guys that were going to accost us, and they said, "Oh yeah," and they just turned around and walked away, man. So it was a violent act, but it was a demonstrative act. Okay.
I see. So we
Okay.
need more of that. We need
we need
no
we need people
parking
who are
meter is
able.
safe.
Well, I'll tell you right now, you don't want to provoke stuff. That's the whole thing. The problem is when you take a non-provocative position and you try to walk away,
Mhm.
bullies will follow you. That's a
Yeah.
signal to them that you're weak, and they will follow you. That's the problem.
All right. So here's the thing about you brought up the term bullies, and we're in a bully era. Uh, Donald Trump, after 1 year, it's worked for him, except it didn't work quite in Davos as well. He had to chicken out in Davos, but he's a bully. He's a bully. And his bully tactics are working here. So how do you deal with how do you deal with the bully tactics that are now, you know, under the guise of masked icemen?
Well, unfortunately, it's going to come down to people willing to do defensive violence, and that's what scares me. That's what
Mm,
scares me. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I didn't get into martial arts. It was completely defensive. I didn't
Mm.
get into martial. A lot of us, man, in the 50s and 60s, we didn't get into martial arts to kick butt. We didn't get it to be provocative or any of that stuff. We got into
Yeah.
it because we kept on getting beat up. Because
Yeah.
Asians were an easy target. We were
Yeah.
small guys, right? There were very few of us, relatively speaking. The reputation that we had was they can only fight when there's like 10 of them, right? That kind of
Mm.
stuff. And so we'd get
Yeah.
provoked all the time, not only by white people, but by black people, sometimes
Yeah.
by Latinos, right? Okay.
Yeah.
This is, when people say, yeah, this is a really diverse city. Yeah, okay, so what? Do you understand the concept of gang? And so a lot of guys joined gangs. That was also defensive, okay?
Yeah.
Because they were forced by both members of their own community that had formed gangs, as well as threats from outside of the community against them to join the gang out of defense, okay?
So,
So a lot of us did martial arts to be able to defend ourselves. Then it got abusive because it started getting competitive. They started having open combat exercises, right? Where some people died. One kid died, he got kicked in the spleen, and then his doctors said, okay, he recovered enough. They let him go back in the ring again. This is right here at Civic Auditorium, which was what it was, Bill Graham Auditorium, and he died. The dude died. Okay.
Hey, how do we prevent the defensive posture from becoming offensive? Because
you can't do it. There's just going to be something's going to happen. It'll either be a lone wolf action, okay? It could be snipers, okay? Or it could be organized. That's the worst.
But
that's the worst thing.
Before it gets to that stage, because here's the thing: on the one hand, a violent, tragic act should be able to stop everyone cold and say, let's assess, we're grown-ups here. There's got to be that who is on either side of the, ICE protesters, who has that force, or who has the force that they can try to, negotiate a kind of peace. Because now you said the states. I don't know if Walt says.
Can you name an MLK?
No, I can't name one who has that kind of power now.
With that kind of status, right? You have people who have international status as bullies, but you don't have anyone that has international status, particularly in the American context, right? As a peacekeeper. There are some. They just don't have that national.
We used to have that. We used to have a name or a person, a leader.
But then we kill them. But then we kill them. We kill them in arrogant, crazy displays of violence. We kill them. This is a great society, man.
Yeah, and I guess
the 5 years between the assassination of one Kennedy brother, bookended by the assassination of the other Kennedy brother, right? And in between two black guys, right?
Yeah.
Right? When the millennium count came around and everybody was putting out encyclopedias, about 2000 and what this millennium means, and here's the past history. I would look at the back, the indexes and the glossaries. I would look in the back of the book and determine whether or not I would buy that book by whether or not they mentioned Malcolm X. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Because they would mention the two Kennedy brothers assassinations and MLK. Malcolm X was also assassinated, but you could tell what the timbre, tenor, and perspective of that book was going to be by whether or not they mentioned Malcolm X. If they didn't mention Malcolm X, that was a right-winger book, man. It's simple as that.
Or not as comprehensive, nor as, from one perspective or all perspectives, but certainly from a right-wing perspective, if they left out Malcolm X. So
there you go.
Well, we don't. So who's going to lead the charge here?
We're talking about being historically objective, right?
Yeah.
If you exclude Malcolm X, you're not being historically objective.
So I'm trying to think, is there, we used to have a labor leader, because that was, one group that was involved in the fray.
They killed Hoffa from the inside,
Yeah. I mean, so I pray, maybe it's Pope Leo.
He's literally the foundation of the UAW.
Who's that?
Jimmy the Hoffer.
Oh, Jimmy Hoffer. Or how about this? How about Pope Leo?
Oh, there you go. That's a good one.
Leo. I mean,
Pope Francis before him,
because
and Pope Leo. Yeah,
be,
and
because
he's
of Pope,
American.
right, because of Pope
Chicago
Leo's,
guy.
yeah, because of Pope Leo's stuff on Christmas. I'm sure that's why Trump responded by bombing Nigeria, on Christmas Day. I mean, people forget that, but he bombed Nigeria on
Yeah, he
Christmas
did.
Day,
He
and
did. By
and I was
saying that
wondering,
it's about assaults on Christians, and the reality was just as many Muslims were being killed as
yeah,
Christians, right? So he
yeah,
wasn't looking at that.
but the strange thing is, like, he couldn't let Pope Leo have the spotlight, on Christmas
No, well,
Day.
yeah,
So
that's
here, hey, I'm the strong guy. This is my world, and it was
what's the
I just
difference
thought
between egomania and megalomania?
megalomania is bigger
Because
because it's global and it's all
yes,
encompassing
yes,
and it's all the
and because
time.
people support it.
Oh,
Because
is that?
people, so when
That's
somebody's
right.
egomaniacal, we can isolate the poor bastard or bastardette and say, hey, man, that person, I don't want to associate with them. This is in our personal lives. Okay.
I see. Megalomania is like public, and
Yes.
people are
And people support
boosting
it.
him up.
And they're still doing it.
Yeah.
89% of the Republican Party still say, yeah, I'm critical of the guy, but I'm still Republican. I'm still
Well,
supportive.
well, this is why the 41% who are independents, who
There we
are
go.
that's going
Hello.
to be there's
Hello.
got right there's got to be something coming from that. All right, so let's get back to this thing about all right. We got this guy shot today. To add to the list, we have violent ICE actions,
Yep. We're still
and
looking for a name on this.
we have this whole thing about it's fear. It's fear. They're building fear.
Well,
How
but
do
they're
we?
getting anger. They're building
Yeah,
fear and they're getting anger. Okay.
yeah.
One of my favorite books from the early 70s was an anthology about politics and political behavior. And it was called Anger, Violence, and Rebellion or Revolution. Okay. And what it shows was frustration brings out anger. Okay. So does anger overcome fear? Yes, it does. Okay. And that's where we're going. I still
Hmm.
remember the authors' names: Nesvold, Fire Robin, and Gurr, Gurr. But it's just an excellent book, and it's very predictive of exactly what we're seeing now. This is the formation of what you're saying we got to watch out for, which is violent counteraction. Okay, and I
Well,
agree with that. I
I
hope it doesn't happen. I really
I
do.
want to be the
Remember the
peacenik
Weather
here.
Underground?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Remember the
I would.
SLA? Remember Symbionese
Oh, that
Liberation
was Patty
Army?
Hearst.
Yes.
Patty
What was
Hearst.
that? That was like 74, the early
Yeah.
75 that all
And
that was going on. Okay. So just
and
in a matter of a few years, right? The Weather Underground started
yeah.
around 68 and then became very visible in 69, 70. Okay.
And then of course you had that we talked about the Panthers earlier.
Sure.
And an offshoot racial militant groups like there was the Brown Panthers for a while.
Well, the Brown Berets.
The Brown Berets. That's right,
Yeah.
the Brown Berets.
Once again, I
So
was there.
yeah, well, I met
You got invited to parties, man.
in
Yeah.
the 80s there were a few Brown Beret. I was covering a story in Dallas, and they had Brown Berets there.
Oh,
They
it
weren't.
had changed. It had changed by then.
Yeah, they
It was
weren't
no
nearly
longer.
as.
Yeah, it was no longer radically militant. They were still
Yeah,
revolutionary in attitude
yeah.
and
It.
in ideology, but they were no longer radically militant. Look at the conversion of gangs in New York, right?
Oh yeah.
Uh, they that's the way the Red Guard started here in San Francisco. They came out
Yeah.
of the Waching, right? The
Yeah.
WC
Yeah.
on the street, and two twin brothers were among the leadership, the Hing brothers, and guess where they went to school?
SI.
Uh, no,
Dig it.
try college.
Oh, San Francisco State.
Yes, indeed. In fact,
Well,
we used to buy our red books, because you
yeah.
weren't radical if you didn't have a copy of the red book. And
The chairman.
and we
The
used to buy
chairman.
our red books from China Books on 24th Street in the Mission.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
one of the clerks behind the counter was Alex Hing, right? One of the Hing brothers. But anyway, yeah.
yeah. Well, what can we look for? I mean, look, the first year, I thought the first year of Trump, I when he went to Davos, well, that press conference that he gave, which I thought was like, this guy is not, you know, this was the unhinged Trump at that
Non
press
compos
conference.
mentis. Non
And
compos mentis.
yeah, but this is on Tuesday after MLK Day, and then on Wednesday he went to Davos and gave that speech, which was, well, he threatened with tariffs, and then he
Yeah,
took it back.
yeah.
He went taco, and
Nick
then
Tucker,
now
yeah.
he comes back, and he still has ice where he
Okay.
can do his thing, and I
Which
think
he confused with Iceland.
yeah, but yeah, the thing is,
Greenland, Iceland, it's just a block of ice. It's okay. You freaking
but you know the thing about
oh,
Trump is I think he's isolating the United States so much, and they're going to go off and do their own thing.
yes,
NATO's
they
going to
are. They already
survive.
are. Oh, I got one for you, man. Okay.
Yeah,
So Canada's premier, Carter, what does he say? He
Carney.
says, okay, I'm making deals with China, and I'm saying, okay, great. They're going to import Chinese electric vehicles. Okay.
Ooh,
That's deadly, man. For who? For
oh,
Musk. It's
for
deadly
Musk, yeah,
because he's got a virtual monopoly, right, going on in
yeah,
a lot of the Western world, right? But the Chinese, man, they got better cars. They're putting out
yeah,
better cars, and those are the guys that are making advances on battery development, right? You know, we
yeah,
used to be doing that right here in Silicon Valley. There were
yeah,
companies that were working on doing better batteries, moving away from lithium, right? Okay, so there's two ways that you can go. You could go for Greenland because they got some deposits. You could go with Venezuela because they got some deposits, right? That you're still competing against the Chinese that got the best access to the most deposits, right? Okay,
yeah,
if you play with lithium. So the other answer is get off of lithium and do something else, right?
yeah.
And once again, we lost that. I don't know who bought those companies that were experimenting with, for example, sodium. Okay, basically
Sodium.
salt based, yeah, batteries and,
Wow.
and storage batteries and stuff like that. And I don't know what happened to them. They must have gotten bought out or something. You know?
Yeah, I know. I heard about some storage cells,
Yes, yes.
and then you start. I think it's because you know, Trump has dominated everything,
It's not just
and
Trump, right? It's the free market.
yeah, well,
You know,
the thing is free. It's
look,
free, but Trump's got to has to participate in
in
some
in the
way.
19 in the early 1970s, okay, even though
Mm.
Alfa Romeo makes cars that break all the time, right?
Yes, I know
But
that.
I'm sorry, I forgot. I said sorry to rip the Band-Aid off of that one, man. Listen, dude, we can restore that car. I can tell you right now.
Okay, all right.
You know,
Okay.
you know that I've built several of those, right?
I know. Okay, we'll talk. We'll talk.
Even
We'll
older
talk.
ones, right? So
We'll,
yeah,
we'll
that's
talk
another
about
side
that.
of my story, right? From
Yeah,
hanging around with hot rodders. But anyway,
yeah,
the so I don't know. Well, the short story is America still was using drum brakes, and
mm,
only on the best cars would they put disc brakes, and they only put them in front disc brake,
right.
still drum brakes in the rear. Okay, our old sedan, right? It's a 1965 Alfa Romeo, and Linda used to drive that on a daily basis to get to work. Okay, and for years. Okay, 1965 sedan, right?
Right.
Famous
Yeah,
in Italian cop movies, right? As this squarish looking little sedan when it goes wah 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 wah. Okay,
yeah,
that. Okay,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that thing lasted forever until we sold it, right? Four-wheel disc brakes. It's
Mm,
1965. Okay, so Europe had gone to four-wheel disc brakes even on their cheaper cars, right? In the mid 60s and even earlier. Okay, so the United States literally held back on disc brakes, and they used as an excuse, it costs more. Remember what they said about seat belts?
Oh
It
yeah,
costs
yep.
more. We're going to have to pass the cost on to the consumer. Remember what they said about smogging? Air pumps, right?
Oh yeah.
68, 69. It's going to cost more, right? And they ended up doing it anyway. What did they say about airbags? Right?
So yeah, we're in the same
We're
spot
the
when it
same
comes
cycle. And
to
so they're doing
storage
it.
cells.
What they do is they buy out the companies that are making these new devices and making them cheaper and better. Okay. And they shut them down. That's
Yeah.
what they did with fuel injection. Look how long they kept on making cars with just carburation instead of more efficient fuel injection. This same
Okay. All right.
thing.
So let's get away from car talk here and just
Well,
finish up.
see, it's also about industry in general. That's what I'm
Mhm.
looking at.
Yeah.
The big companies hold back on industrial development, technological development, if they're not controlling it. And then when they
Yeah.
do control it, they control it so that they get to profit from it. Obviously,
And
that's the objective.
and of course they want government to be free them of any kind of regulation. They want government to
They
subsidize. They want
say that's not what they do. That's
well,
what they say.
but certainly with Musk, that happened with Musk. You know, the subsidies, and
Well,
he
but
was enabled.
yeah,
He's only in government because of the business advantage.
yes,
Really, he's
yes.
not in the government because of the social advantage. Certainly, although he's got all these
What, you're
babies.
saying he doesn't have any friends?
Well, I'm saying that this is the reason why rich people are into government. So lower
Yeah, but
taxes,
there were
get
there were five of
deregulated.
those guys, man. There were five of those guys at the inauguration, man, for the
Yeah.
second.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
But all right. Now compare where we are now in our conversation where we were at the beginning, because I'm still concerned, and we're even on borderline depression about what's going to
Oh yeah.
happen with our country. Can you even have the kind of economy that we all hope for
Oh yeah.
when
You can.
we have
You
this
can.
sort of violent polarization happening in our society?
I think you can tamp down the violence if you come up with decent policy. And so we were criticizing the right and saying that it's not going to come from the right, okay?
Mhm.
And I've given you some rationale for why it won't, okay? But now let's take a look at the Democrats and the left, okay? Who's come forward with a plan that they can articulate to the public that will give them some sense of hope? In other words, a plausible policy, right? That can be
Mhm.
described in actual material terms, things that people will understand, right? Like,
Mhm.
what's attractive about Mr. Steyer, who's now running for governor, and look how early he got started, right?
Yeah.
And look at what he's saying. One of the two big things that he's saying is we're going to build 1 million new houses. And he's
Yeah.
just talking about in the state of California. Now,
Yeah.
is that even possible? And the answer is yes, with
Yeah.
enough investment. But you have to deregulate as well. Okay.
Yes, Steyer's out there, but I don't know. I had a problem with Steyer before.
Oh yeah, me
Uh,
too. Me
yeah, I
too.
mean
But I'm
he's
just saying, is he saying something that's plausible?
well, and he I think at some point we'll take the guy who has policies that don't also invoke violence,
Okay.
or that somehow
I'm
brings
cool with that.
together a kind of a harmony in our society,
Well,
a
but
certain amount
see,
of peace.
if you give people immediate economic relief of some sort, right? So, for example, shifting the tax base.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That is something that has immediate effect. Okay.
Well.
Restoring the ACA, right? Even
Mhm.
at the state level, and the state of California has been doing that. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
That's only a temporary process. But
see,
you have to
we
articulate that. People have to
we need
articulate how that gets done.
we need something to get down to connect to where we're talking and what we're talking about to the basic issue that no one seems to talk enough about, which is it costs too much to live. I feel it when I come to New York. I feel
Sure.
how expensive it is
Oh
to
yeah.
live in New York. I don't feel how expensive it is to live where I am in California, or even when I go into San Francisco. But in New York, I feel it.
Oh yeah.
I feel how expensive life is, and I see my actor friends, I see my artist friends, and they aren't living the 1% life.
Hey
They're
man.
but they're struggling for their for their
A, a,
expression, for their art.
a mutual friend of ours had the daughter that
Mm,
did her college education on the East Coast, and I warned her mother that she's going to stay there. And
mm,
she got into she got into theater, and she is,
mm.
from my understanding, she's directing some stuff somewhere in the
Yeah,
Midwest, I think Chicago.
yeah.
But I remember when she first moved out there, and when she graduated from college, she went to get an apartment, and she was saying this is way back, man, in the 80s and the early 90s, early and mid 90s, and
Mm.
she was renting a closet to
Oh
sleep in,
yeah, yeah.
man.
I was at the Metropolitan Museum of Art yesterday, and they have these bathroom stalls that look like they could be one
Sleepers.
bedroom apartments. Well, it's a closet. It's a literally a water closet, but it could be sold as a cheap condo. It had that kind of
I
amenity.
know we're laughing because it's just the picture of it, the visual of it, right? Is
Well,
laughable.
it just
It's real.
reminded me of God. This could be a hotel room. This
Oh yeah.
bathroom.
Oh
That was
man.
it. But
Yeah.
but 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 a small one, a very small one as long as it had a toilet and maybe you put a place for a hot plate and maybe a Murphy bed. Anyway,
Are you describing an international hotel
right,
SRO?
right. There's places like that in Japan and Asia
Oh yeah.
and
Well, those are
yeah,
tiny. Those
yeah.
things are
Well,
like
they're just
berths.
beds, right? That just
Yeah,
slide
yeah.
out.
They're
But this
literally
is
like
I
berths
mean, I was I was at the I was at the
yeah, in
Met
a train.
yesterday.
They look like
I
train
just had
berths.
just had that
Yeah.
feeling.
Anyway, moving on.
Anyway, listen. Well, Dan, all right. So we're not. We started out kind of depressed. We're not as depressed now.
No, the hopefulness is that it has to come from the left. All of the good changes that have happened over the last 150 years, right, came from the left.
Mhm.
And so what people don't
So
understand is the left isn't about party. Okay, it's not about party politics, and that's why you're seeing so many people leave the Democratic Party. Right, more people are
mhm,
actually leaving the Republican Party, but they're the younger ones at this
yeah,
point. And so there's a lot of alienated people that don't like either party. They're moving
yeah,
towards the center. Okay, and I
yeah,
think for the sake of my own forays into journalism, I just left the Democratic Party because it allows me to be, critical of the Democratic Party without having to suffer the, consequences
yeah,
of who I support and them suffering the consequences of Democratic ire. Because there is a California machine, right? Even though
yeah.
it's kind of different right now. It's no
Mhm.
longer the Willie Brown machine, right?
Yeah, machine politics ain't what it used to be, and who knows
No,
what's the machine gonna be? Gavin Newsom was sort of poised to be that, but
yeah, but it's
he's I
the
don't know.
worst
There's
thing in the
no
world. The worst thing in the world is to be 10 months out and be the front runner.
Yeah, I know. He's got some problems.
He
All
does
right, so
that.
Dan, yeah, and it's too bad because we may have a front runner or a leader that we may not know. We may not. He's not.
This
He's
is
not.
true.
Not on the right. I mean, and Andy Bashir, governor of Kentucky, who I've talked about over the last few years, he was at Davos, and he got
I think it
some
will be
airtime.
somebody like that. I think it'll be somebody in that age range, right?
Yeah,
And somebody from a state like that, rather
Kentucky.
than the coast, that would have. Remember how Carter,
Well, Carter
people
from Georgia.
didn't know who the hell he was, right? But that was an excellent compromise. But look what happened to him.
It's going to be
You
a
know,
cadre of elitist, leftist Democrats who then take him around, or this person take him or her
well,
around and say, "Here she is. Here he is,"
yeah. Well,
and introduce him to the world.
Carter, one. Remember the two big policies he had that were really interesting. Besides being pro affirmative action and all that. Okay,
Yeah.
uh, he was for nuclear energy. Okay,
Mm,
because he was a sailor. He was a Navy man, an officer on
yeah.
nuclear ships. And the other one was he was willing to freeze prices.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And so that's like anti-capitalist, man. And
Yeah,
so
he was
truly, that's a socialist move. Okay,
he did a lot of things that was
but that really worked. That actually worked. And who
yeah.
took the credit for it? Reagan took the credit for it. Okay.
Well, well, look, anything that the Democrats do, Trump will take credit for it
Well,
because
but he's crapping all over the Biden administration, and everybody keeps saying, "Well, what you're doing right now is way worse than what was happening when Biden left office." So,
oh
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
what
Well,
what are you talking about? But you listen, you talk to Republicans and say, "Oh, it was way worse under Biden." So there
yeah.
they are. There they are. We got to work around that. It's useless to be confrontational with people like that. Okay.
All right. So we have some hope. We have some hope. We have to just be less angry.
Practical. We have to be practical. You can't be saying stuff like defund ICE, okay? Abolish
Yeah.
ICE. You can't be doing that.
Although Mom Donnie said it the other day, but
Sure, that's fine.
he,
And then
but
that worked well in New York, and that might
yeah,
work well here in San Francisco.
yeah.
But you got to come up with something that is much more down to earth, very pragmatic, and at the same time accomplishes what you want to do. And so
In yeah,
abolishing ICE isn't where it should be, right? It
yeah.
should be
Enforce the law.
replace ICE, okay?
Repla-
Or I don't want to say reform ICE because that's terrible. All right. You
Yeah.
want to replace ICE. Now, the reality is that ICE only changed to what it is now, okay, over the last 8 years.
Yeah.
Okay, it actually was a safely operating institution. It just was underfunded, just like
Oh, yeah.
just like the
The,
ALJs, like the
the,
administrative law judges
the,
that work for ICE, right? They were
yeah.
underfunded. So
Well,
so the
they're fun.
processing, yeah,
They're funded equal to the FBI now. I mean, their funding level is way high.
yeah, but for
You know,
what purpose?
well, to bust immigrants. Yeah, that's
Well,
you
I
know,
I think it's
it
worse
did
than that. I think it's to bust everybody and then
well.
provoke reaction so
Oh yeah,
that they can deploy the military.
they're
This
going
is
after
about
everybody.
provocation.
All right, so Dan, we're gonna see how this plays out. We'll talk more about year one as it evolves. But
I just want you to be safe. Enjoy your evening. Break a leg and
well, thank
uh,
you very
and get
much.
back to us safely. I know
Yeah,
it's a tight
I
slice,
will.
man.
I
It's a tight.
will. I'm going to be on the leading edge of that storm, hopefully, and going the opposite way. And hopefully, I'll be back in time for that Monday 8:30 show. So Dan, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for
Appreciate
having
it.
me
You
on.
have you have
Be
a good
safe, man.
weekend. All right, thank you very much, man. There he goes, my friend Daniel Phil Gonzalez. Oops, still there. College of Ethnic Studies, Asian American Studies, Professor Emeritus. I call on him to remind me that I am too nice. I am too nice compared to Dan. Will just say, "Hey, look, call it what it is," and I'm the nice guy. I'm the nice. But we're at a point here, and we had a man who was a protester who was shot by a federal agent, nice agent in Minneapolis. Another one today. He died, and I'm sure there will be more news about that, but it just happened as we were coming on. But we are at a critical point at this ICE confrontation, and we we need a man of peace to come forward. Someone. We need cooler heads to prevail, as they say, and we're not getting it from Donald Trump or J.D. Vance. So ICE data breach hits 4,500 border patrol. Oh, that's gonna mean stuff if there's a data breach. So I don't want to speculate what that's gonna happen, but the defensive forces are out there, and I don't know. We need to be practical. We need to be practical, as Dan says. Anyway, if you missed any or all a part of this show, go back, use your finger, rewind. I just want to talk about the show I'm doing here. It's called The Amanuensis by Ishmael Reed, a stage reading. One showing tonight, 7:30 or 7 o'clock at 40 Great Jones Street, the Eric Firestone Gallery. The Amanuensis. It's the song of the South. I mean, this is the thing about African American history, the Black narrative. It has been co-opted so many times, and now it's being shunted aside. We're not getting African American history because of this current administration. And what Ishmael is doing is telling the real story behind the Song of the South, how Joel Chandler Harris, a white author, tried to pass his work or the stories of slaves as his own. So it's an interesting telling of that. Ishmael Reed is the literary giant here in America, been writing 50, 60 years. The Amanuensis is his latest play. It's directed by Rome Neal, and I have a small part. Small parts. That's why I'm here. My show is EmilAmok 69. There. EmilAmok 69. That one. It's at the Petro stage. And it's on January, let's see, let me hold this here. January 26th at 8:30, the 2nd, 8:30 p.m. the 7th. Check it out. It's at playground-sf.org. Go there for tickets, and you can buy the live stream if you're not in the area and can't see me live. And I talk about this first Trump, the first year of the second term. Talk about it, how I'm dealing with it. It's funny, emotional, sad. Anyway, check it out. All right. If you can, I'll put up my QR code. And it's at 8:30 on Monday. If I beat the storm, I'll beat the storm. I mean, they're talking it up. It's sad. I mean, I'm not sad, but it's scary. But everyone is using it as an excuse to stay home. So go see this play. Go see the Amanuensis tonight if you're in New York, Eric Firestone Gallery, and then see my play on Monday. You can stay home for that, watch it live stream. All right, that's it. You can tell I'm in there. Do you hear that? Yeah, lots of police, lots of sirens here. Anyway, we like to end with a little loving kindness. Sharon Salzberg, we like a little loving kindness. It just reminds us of the soft parts of ourselves and how we put that out there. And it makes a difference. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal Kita.